Right, here we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the final long-term plan workshop for Thursday, the 30th of May. I remind everyone that this workshop is being live streamed. I note that the second half of the workshop will be held in public excluded due to the need to discuss commercially sensitive information. I have apologies for lateness from Councillor Harrison Hunt, Councillor Henstock, who's stuck in traffic, and Councillors McDonald, McClellan, Goff and Donovan are online. Before I hand over to staff, I'd just like to say there's a couple of things I want to sort of see either off my chest or whatever. We've got to start looking at timing and punctuality for everyone arriving at these meetings. People seem to just drift in and drift out, some. I know there's reasons sometimes why you can't be here on time, but as long as I have an apology for lateness or something like that. And if someone wants to go on Zoom, they've got to tell us early. And if you are on Zoom and your camera is not on, you will be written down as absent from the meeting because it's not on. There's a lot of people putting a lot of effort in to come here. Other people think, oh, we'll just do Zoom because it's easier to sit on the backside at home and do bloody nothing. So that's a bit rich. But we're trying to run a council here, not a bloody drop-in centre. Okay? I will now hand over to staff. No, public excluded, that's later. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morena, Your Worship and councillors, and thank you very much. So, look, today is the final workshop for the next couple of hours in this tranche that we've had over the last week or two, where we've presented feedback on the consultation and then presented various options and the Mayor's recommendations and so on. And so today we it follows much the same format as the last ones. We'll give you an update on where we believe the guidance we've received has got us to brief you on the financial impact of that guidance in terms of rates, to give you a bit more information on a couple of the topics and to confirm where we go to from here, including it going toward it. And one of the things we do want to, and we'll do it again at the end, is remind you that if it's not in the draft LTP, the Mayor's recommendations or put up as an amendment, then that item doesn't make its way into the LTP. So we'll just confirm that again so that people who've got questions about what that means and how it works, we can explain it. But we think it's quite important. If you have an item you'd like raised, it's done either it's in the draft, it is in the Mayor's recs, or it is raised as an amendment. So just so you're clear on that process. What we move to, let's just check what the next slide is. So what we have today, as I said, a summary of guidance, the financial update, the capital endowment reconciliation showing you how much was in there, how much we are proposing to fund from there, and what your balance is, the Arts Centre, the eco events, the events eco funding, and then we move to public excluded to discuss some financially, commercially sensitive information. So look, this here, the summary of guidance is the summary of guidance we gave on Tuesday when we were here. So there's the Accelerating Climate Adaptation, the Climate Resilience Fund, the Anglican Cathedral, the Air Force Museum, the Aldhurst Memorial Hall, the Shirley Community Centre, Sports Network Plan, Temporary South Library, Akaroa Wastewater, disposal of council properties, the ratings for renewal, city vacant land differential, rating of visitor accommodation, and rates for emissions for charities. So we have that was presented, so that as it was presented to you on Tuesday. On Tuesday, this is the what the officers have taken as being the guidance that they received, and so it is the heritage targeted rate is merged into the general rate. The active travel rate is merged into the Uniform Annual General Charge, or UAGC. Orana Park, for the financial year 25 to 27, continue with 240,000 from the Strengthening Communities Fund for operations, add 260,000 for maintenance from the Capital Endowment Fund, gives a total of 500,000 per annum, plus 50,000 from that Capital Endowment Fund in year 1 for a business review, looking at a sustainable model. The Arts Centre, and this will come up later on, provide 820 funding for 10 years of the for the 10 years of the LTP, in addition to the existing 110 in the Strengthening Communities Fund. And that's reviewed after 3 years, but there's a bit more on that one in a later slide. The Santa Parade, providing 125,000 per annum for 3 years from the Capital Endowment Fund, and we review. Hagley Park, the parking charges, we do just want to get some clarification. There is a revenue reduction to allow for free weekend parking, and what we're seeking really is the guidance that the weekends are free, or the guidance that the weekends are not free. So we can do that when we can circle back to that, Your Worship, when we've gone through the other ones, but that is the guidance we'd like on that one.
Well, we can do it now if you want.
All right, yes, that suits us too.
Hear it from here, free. What does everyone else think? Free? Everyone's free? Happy? Free? Go for it.
We'll take that as guidance.
I was keen for charging, but
we can play with it on D-Day if we have to, but free at this stage. Yeah, get into it. Otherwise, we'll be here all day.
Kia ora.
Carry on.
We'll take that. The Natural Environment Staff Resource provide 35,000 to establish a position coordinating the natural environment across the actions across the organisation. Biodiversity, an additional 100,000 per annum for 3 years. Environmental Partnership provide total funding of 700,000 in the first 2 years, and this includes better off funding in both of those years of 250,000, and provide 1 million per annum from the third year on. That's financial year 27. Events funding, and again there will be some more on that shortly, but the guidance that we had as we read it was 1.2 million in year 1, 2.1 in year 2, financial year 26, and 2.7 in financial year 27, and 0.4 million in financial year 28 to effectively bring forward the start of the ecosystem funding. The transport, the program to proceed is presented, subject to final NZTA advice, noting a report will come back to Council for a decision on Wheels to Wings. So that's the guidance as to where we are.
Good, thank you. Carry on.
What that now brings us to, and I'll pass over to Russell, is the financial impact of that guidance blended, put into the rates.
Thanks very much, Bede, and good morning, Mr Mayor, councillors. So, where we're looking is a summary of where we, I guess, the next couple of slides will just give the detail of some of those guidance that we've seen over the last couple of days, and the rating impact in particular that has. So that's setting out the detail. Where do we end? So this is the position that we're sitting as the result of that. So year 1, we're sitting at 12.14 overall, 8.9 in year 2, 4.7 year 3, and 4.3 in year 4. So when we look at the separating Te Kaha from the base, we see that the base is sitting at just under 10, 997, 7.2 in year 2, and you can read the numbers for the others. But that's the position that we're in as we sit here this morning. Cool. Questions? Yeah, I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
No, all good.
Fine, thank you.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Yanni and Tim.
So I guess I'm just getting a bit concerned that by the time we come to do the amendments, we're going to be sort of told that like we've already made. No, they have to be in by tomorrow, but we need time to consider them as well. So I'm just trying to understand how there's a number of things that have been highlighted that haven't been even discussed in terms of guidance, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff that's been discussed without any sort of formal record of the guidance in terms of individuals. So I'm just trying to get an understanding between the difference of the process of giving guidance where we're not voting, there's no record of it, and what's going in versus how we're going to handle the amendments.
So the position has been that the items that we've discussed have been pretty front and centre throughout the last week and a bit.
Correct.
And so we've been going through those items. There's been any additional items would be an amendment. So, so we looked at what was consulted on and things coming through the submission process. So those are the items that we've captured and spoken about here over the last number of workshops.
So for example, like the screen grant, is that going to get guidance, or that's just an amendment that we put on? That was quite a number of submissions on that.
So I think through you, Your Worship, I think that is one where if you, back to the comment at the beginning, if it's not in the draft, and we heard yesterday from CNZ, they talked about that they didn't necessarily have the funding. If it's not in the Mayor's Recs, that would be one that you would put up as an amendment and say, because we heard about that in the submissions around the screen grant and the request for that funding, that would come as an amendment for it to go into the draft, into the LTP.
But arguably it had more submissions than like the Shirley Community Centre, for example, and we've had a big discussion about giving guidance around Shirley, but we've had no discussion around the film grant.
So sorry, I was under the impression that I thought I had heard that we were just going to tell Christchurch NZ, pay it. Get your priorities right and pay that ahead of something else. That's what I had heard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they're giving up, not us.
We have KPIs for them, so it would be us.
This is all crystallised in my head when we got that fantastic report on how much money we give everyone for funding events in the city. It's millions. It's millions. It's not because we pull it apart and say, oh, this fund hasn't got much, that one hasn't. You add them all together, it's a shed load of dough.
So that's noted, and we can then put that in as one to fund that, because that's correct. It was discussed at the submissions, and from the questions came that suggestion that CNZ should be asked to fund it from their existing source.
So
that would be a direction, I think, back to CNZ rather than additional funding into the budget.
Yeah, it's up to them to find.
Would that be a level of service or an activity management change as well?
Through you, Your Worship, it'd probably be through the statement of intent or something like that, I would have thought.
Okay, thank you. Tim.
Yeah, thank you. Just don't need an answer now, but the temporary South Library, the discussion with increased services to mobile and outreach services. It's the second busiest library in the city. I just need a bit more information on that to move forward, because it's saying no funding, reprioritise South Library OPEX, which is fine, but I think we need, or I certainly, and I'm sure Melanie and Sarah, the councillors involved in the area, that we need to know what's planned there. So whether it's through Caroline or whoever, a bit of a heads up there.
Yeah, we can.
Well, yeah. And the second and last one at the moment is with regards to Wheels and Wings, whether not before or after, but if it is decided that, because this is a ball that just keeps bouncing and like to the media it keeps giving, if that is decided not to go ahead, can we use that funding for other cycle lanes that people actually, that community boards or whatever want? Because we've got a few in the south. I know they keep talking in the east about, like those connections. So there are plenty that want cycle lanes at the community. So no, but you're just taking money from one to another. So I'm just asking the question from staff. Look, don't need it now. Come back to us. It's fine. No, just
That's later.
Yep. No, just
No, good.
Yep.
Okay, anyone else? It's Pauline.
the additional subvention money, the 7.36 or whatever it is that taken into account here yet?
No, that's a great question, and through you,
Oh,
Mr.
thank
Mayor,
you.
Yeah. He only says that.
Oh, yeah, favouritism now.
He only says that because it doesn't happen very often.
Russell, I remember.
It's a great question because I can answer it. Okay. And the answer to get back to is no.
Not
So
yet.
this is outside of that. Yeah,
Okay.
a discussion later on.
Up there.
Great answer. No.
Oh, excellent answer.
Would you like my glasses? Carry on, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this is the Capital Endowment Fund, and I'll allow Russell to work you through that as well.
Okay, so if the question was asked, what are the funds available and what's the split over the years and what's coming out of the fund? So it's essentially that's what's saying in there, and you see over the years. So we've got current year. We expect the amount available to be just under $3 million, and by the end of 27-28, slightly higher than $3 million. So, yeah.
So that's it. Yes.
Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, we can give more detail if there's any questions.
Sarah, then Tim.
Yeah, I'd like to propose that that we do an additional 3 years of the Screen Grant Fund, but from the Capital Endowment Fund. And the original was 1.5 million over 3 years, so we could do 500 a year from the Capital Endowment Fund, and there is funding there for that. And that way, we don't find out, something else that gets cut where everyone comes to us and going, oh, CNZ have cut our funding, just like the Screen Grant people did. Because other groups won't have had the opportunity because they wouldn't have known there was a cut. So
Yeah, that's good. This is a classic example here where you see Christchurch NZ on top of their 14.8 or 15 mil that they get. They also get another $1.5 million every year for these sort of things. And that's where the $500,000 a year for the Screen Grant should come out of, because it's extra funding that they get on top of what they get already. So it's on and on and on. So where do we stop? John, please.
Could I just remind councillors that in the hearings process, the Youth Hub was directed to the Capital Endowment Fund. They've made an application for between $2 and $2.4 million, which is actively being considered and assessed by staff at the moment and will be reported back to council in July. Additionally, we know from Ferrymead Park that they will also be considering an application to the 25-26 and 26-27 Capital Endowment Fund. So there are a couple of provisional commitments that council need to be aware of before committing any further.
Yeah, coming up the pipe. Okay. Tim and then Sarah.
I realise that inflation protection currently the Capital Endowment Fund isn't inflation protected. So it says here in your paper that even with a 2% protection, there would be very little available. So I'm just wondering, because personally I think it's more important to inflation protect the fund, because if we keep clipping into it, we've just heard there's going to be a queue of people that maybe that we agree to what's here in front of us, but what would be the figure available if we inflation protected it, even as suggested in the paper, 2%?
I support that.
Because we're here for a short period of time. The city's here for a long period of time, and we've got to have that vision. And that's what's really concerning me around this
If we
table.
don't inflation protect it, we're eroding it.
John.
Thank you, Councillor Scandrett. We sent some figures out to all councillors on the 10th of May, plotting a number of scenarios. If you like, I can have a look at that and send that information out again shortly.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not expecting any answers today because I should have sent these through.
We've got some here.
Yes, it was, and it was calculated by our esteemed financial services people. Yeah.
Some of it's up there, so do you want to start walking through it, Pete?
Sarah, please.
Yeah, I think I agree about inflation of protecting, but I also see, if you look back at the other slide with the amounts on it, then there actually is enough still there for the Screen Grant Fund and for the Youth Hub, because all of these things will be over a period of years. They're not a big lump sum, and potentially for Ferrymead if we decided to go that way. And I quite like the idea of spending the Capital Endowment Fund on core things that are metropolitan in focus and that have a large impact across the community, rather than smaller geographic things that we've traditionally done in
Put
the
up as
past.
an amendment. Yeah, okay. Just a question, chaps. This up the top left there, 5.245 million, right?
Yes.
That's the interest. We're only spending interest here, or is that what's left in it totally?
Quite, Your Worship. Most of it is interest.
Yes.
On the fund. So the fund has around just over $100 million in it.
Yes.
And so the interest that's allocated is, it's say 5% or just under, near enough to $5 million. So what you've got, and I'm from up there, and I'll allow John Filsell to correct me, but I think it's unspent money from the current year would add to that interest component, John.
No?
Essentially, Bede's right. The available funding is the proceeds of the interest plus any carry forwards from the previous year.
So we're not ripping into our principal. So to
No,
speak.
you're not.
Thing.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor. So if we looked at inflating it, or inflating, adjusting it, or accounting for inflation, as Bede has outlined, that'd be about $2 million a year. So what that would say is at the amount that's available down the bottom, the 2.971 in the 24-25, we'd take that $2 million out. Okay, so that would just leave you the $1 million available to then distribute.
But also, we're far better off this year and last year than we were a number of years ago when we were getting sod all interest on it. We must be a lot better off now than we were.
I'm not sure of the history, sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
John, maybe.
It wasn't a very
Yes,
good question.
you are.
Right. Carry on, please.
Okay, thank you. So, so reading ahead, so we've discussed inflation protecting it. The next item, I guess, is the split. So there was, an agreed split between innovation, economic development, environment, and civic and community split. So currently it's 60%, 40% split. Look, staff are just seeking clarification that that's to what their recommendation is that remains. Yep.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Okay. That's fine.
Everyone?
Good as gold.
Yep.
Thank
Carry
on. That's a guide and a policy, not a strict rule, perhaps. How rigid is it?
It's a council resolution, but the categories are broad, and the council resolution was designed to allow the council flexibility.
Okay, thank you. That's an
Thank you,
excellent
John.
answer.
That's good.
Just as a heads up, I'll be putting in the only amendment I think I'll be putting in is to inflation protect the Capital Endowment Fund.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Righto. Yanni, sorry, didn't see that.
I mean, there's a number of other things, like we've got no single project to be funded for more than 3 years, except in exceptional circumstances. But we see like Christchurch and just repeatedly getting a line item funding. Have you looked at the rest of the criteria around how it's been distributed and what the policy is in terms of consistency?
That's a great question. Thank you. And I'll pass it over to John.
Yes, we can provide that, and we'll probably send that and circulate that back to councillors. Councillors are refreshed on the fund, its background, and the criteria whenever they consider a application, and so we can certainly provide that information back.
Okay, just for people out there, John, in TV land, the 100 million was from when we sold some shares of Orion or something, a dividend of Orion or something, was it?
Yeah, it was the I call it the municipal gas company. Yeah, so it's the proceeds from that.
Yeah.
And they've been invested.
And
it's the proceeds of the
and
investment.
That's why we've got the luxury of this today.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Okie doke.
Just a point. So the issue through you, Your Worship, that Councillor Johansson has raised, we did give that some consideration, and it almost becomes like you're splitting hairs because the resolution does say for not more than 3 years. And the question, I suppose, is while you're giving it to CNZ, it's for different projects inside CNZ every year, if you like. So, but is it going to? Not going to a project. It's going to an entity. So it becomes a little bit of a splitting hairs exercise as to what was intended, really. And I think that's a decision for council when it decides as to how it wants to treat that.
And also the number at the bottom when it says current available 2.9. Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah. That in theory will get quietly whittled away one way or another for the next year for other things that will quietly come through the door. No.
Well, correct. I think John again is probably best to answer that, but that's right. That's what my understanding is that fund has been used for.
Yeah, applications will be brought to the council for their consideration. So yes, it will be.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Pauline. Yeah.
So that number, 2.9, if we inflation proofed it, that would just be 0.9 roundabout.
Correct.
So Tim, did you? So if that 2.9 balance would just become 900,000 left if we inflation proofed
Yeah,
it.
and if we don't do it now, and in 10 years or 15 years when there are some other people around this table, they'll be looking at a capital endowment fund that has less.
I know that.
so,
I'm just
yeah.
pointing it
We-
out. But you could start it.
Did staff say
Sooner
there
or
was
later,
some-
we've got to tighten the belt. And if others like Rata are changing their attitude and without telling their partners that running the city, then we can't be the last cab off the block. We've got to think about the future of the city and those that will be coming to us or this council in 20 years and in 10 years and in 15 years. If we don't start looking at the future, the real future, what are we doing here?
Just let me throw this at you, Bede. We're getting roughly about 5% on this, would you say? Yeah, we do,
Yes,
but it's
correct.
5. Yes,
Yeah, it
yes,
is.
I know.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. The return we get off our money from Orion, I believe, is around 3%. So one would ask, are we better off to sell some shares in Orion and put the money we get for it into here because we'll get a better return and then we've got a bigger lot of money? And I'm just throwing it out there.
Think about equity.
Open that can, William.
Thank you very much. I just thought I'd just get
Thank
The
you.
difference
Don't
is-
have to
the
answer
difference is
that.
Orion's value grows each year.
Nice
and
try.
this one flat
However,
line.
several years ago, we were getting a lot less, just saying.
That's saying that if you interest different years, if you interest protect available balance at 4.2%,
sorry,
you
Samuel.
actually get a negative.
Samuel, how are you?
If you, well, you wouldn't.
Yeah, I was good until that question. I just want to understand if Tim's putting up an amendment to inflation protect the fund, it'll be a lot more than $2 million. So we just need to be really clear on that because, I mean, unless I've missed it, inflation's well over 2%.
The paper that's in front of us says even at 2%, I'd be happy to put it at 2% because it does have to be a working fund, but we do need to protect it for the future. So,
Yeah, so it would be good when we get the advice back on that to understand why. I mean, obviously that's a decision councils well before like my time and Jake's time and that have made around that. But I'm just conscious that we've already told a group to go to that fund this year, so we avoid rate funding a contribution to the youth hub. So we just need to be really clear that we're not leading people down the wrong path.
yeah, just remember, it's a council of 17 people, so we haven't all agreed to that. It's just been asked to do it. So,
Okay. Sorry, I've had Sam. Celeste, you've got your hand up, but you haven't got your camera on, bud. I need to see you on the screen, otherwise I won't be asking you.
Yeah, sorry, I had surgery, so I said that I couldn't go on screen.
Really? Sorry, I didn't know that.
So should I just go ahead?
Yeah, far away.
So I'm just curious to know, with regards to the Capital Endowment Fund, are we able to see some of the funding that was granted 3 years funding and is coming to end? So 23, 24, because we don't have visibility of some of those funds that are wrapping up. So I'm looking at the environmental partnership funds listed, but we don't have the community partnership fund, which ended last year.
Community Waterways Partnership Fund, are you talking about?
No, that's a different one.
Oh, the one from the east.
Carry on, Pete.
Yeah, so that through you, Your Worship, Councillor Donovan's correct. And if you look in the draft LTP has that there, and so there was 350,000, and I don't know how far it goes back, but 350,000 was given to the Environmental Climate Change Partnership, and a similar amount to the Community Partnership. 350 each last year, in the current year, has been given from the fund.
And there were some additional funds in there that also aren't showing. So I guess the question would be, because there's a split here, so we're looking to get a split across a few different areas, economic, environment, community focused. But if we're putting in new requests, but we're not looking at some of those requests that are, or previous funds that are ending, they're supporting projects that still have a need, much like funding going to other groups. So I'm just concerned that we're putting in a whole bunch of new requests for whatever it is, the Screen Society and so forth, and we don't see the full picture of what's coming to an end, the requests coming in, and then if we do inflation cap it, then actually we're not sure what we'll lose out as well. So I'd just like a bit more information about what's come before and what's coming in.
So John touched on that a bit earlier, Celeste, but do you want to add anything now? Do you want to get something out in email to people?
I think it's easier to get something out in email, Chief Executive.
Email would be good, actually, just so everyone can see that, because we'd sort of need to know what some of these other requests are, like the Ferrymead Park. You just can't see that stuff listed there as a potential request coming in.
Okay. Righto, Tyrone.
Sorry if I missed this, but remind me why the Capital Endowment Fund's not actively managed? I mean, it's $100 million. Like, wouldn't a fund manager be managing it? No. No? Right. Okay.
Don't go.
Well, that's actually a very different conversation. But
so
anyway,
we can potentially have a conversation. But
Okay, Mary.
we can potentially at some other date give you an update about Capital Endowment Fund and
How it works.
how it works.
Yeah. Sarah, please. All good? Yanni.
Just quickly, I think John made reference to some advice that had previously been given. So yeah, it'd be really good just to get, just if the advice could all be collated and just sent around again, that would be helpful. Sorry, it's just a mirage of a lot of documents that we've got on the hub, so it's quite tricky to find. But
Beautiful.
will that show the different split between the categories as well in terms of funding to date, or over the past 3 years?
We don't want to go backwards, do we?
No, we have to reassess the criteria, right? That's part of what the staff have asked. I was just interested to know if we had any sort of information about the balance of economic environment versus the civic and community.
The more information, the more detailed information, the further back councillors want us to go, will result in a greater length of time in getting the information to you. We'll certainly do our best to get the current accurate information in a timeline that will allow councillors to take it into consideration.
Cheers.
Thank you. Right, carry on, gents.
Right, thank you, Your Worship. So this is the Arts Centre, and as we mentioned earlier on in the workshop, that we would bring back some more information. So the further advice requested is to provide a response that considers funding for the Arts Centre from general rates, to consider baseline funding year on year, request for consideration of a review at year 3, that the review of the Arts Centre model be completed in the first year of the LTP, and the rationale for the rates, sort of rates charged versus rates remission. And so the first thing we'd note is that the Arts Centre already has 110,000 allocated to it in the Strengthening Communities Fund for the first 2 years. So what you see below is additional funding on top of that 110. And if that's rates funded at 820,000, there's a 0.12% increase in year one, but no further increase allocated to that in subsequent years because it's already in the base rate when we go to do year two. If I can, so and that flows through right through the 10 years. On the rates remission, rates charge, the rationale for charging the rates is that you then can give back to the Arts Centre the amount that does not include any rates for commercial entities or leases that are already paying rates. Whereas if you have a remission, the risk is that actually you just remit across the whole precinct, and therefore those commercial operators get a bit of a windfall in that they're not charged the rates. So that's really the reason why it's a more transparent way to ensure that the commercial lessees pay the rate, but the community ones get the remission. And we'll take questions and seek to answer from there.
I don't believe it. There's none. Sam, do you have a question? Oh, no.
Just to clarify, because this is different to the staff advice we received the other day, and so I'm just trying to understand what will be baked into the draft LTP as opposed to amendments. So is this what's going to be baked in now? Because I thought we'd had a bit of a compromise position.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, this is the position that's in the numbers that I've outlined, Councillor. Yeah.
So when, I mean, I was in the room. When did we land on funding them 820 grand for the next 10 years each? I don't recall that at all.
It was going to be dependent on the review, though.
The compromise was also reviewing in the first year, and this was sort of, I mean, this appears to me to be intended to try and avoid another campaign next year, then a campaign the year after that. And this is a compromise because they're asking for 1.8, 2.3, so it is effectively a compromise. But yeah, a review in the first year as soon as possible makes sense.
I'm still not clear though on how we got to 820 grand a year for each year. Even the staff advice after the discussions wasn't 820 each year.
If we've interpreted it incorrectly, let us know now. We're just basing it on, yeah.
That is kind of confusing, isn't it? Because it was 820 and then 650 and then 5 something, yeah. And then it's changed over the last 2 or 3 days. It just
And there's nothing from the Capital Endowment Fund or sort of anything. It seems a bit strange.
So to make that very clear, I think it's been interpreted differently.
So so when this was when we put this together, what we aimed to do was that we understood that there was some concern that from the submissions there was a desire from the community that the centre be given some funding, and that after discussions between the CE of the Arts Centre, an amount of 820 was the amount that was needed, and so by reducing it in subsequent years, we as staff sort of took it that maybe we hadn't quite got that balance correct, and that 820 should go in each year. And then I suppose there's an assumption, what do you do in the outer years? Because we want to make sure that there's something there to be debated and proposed at a future point. What do you do in years 4 to 10? To the point that Andre's made, is to make sure that we don't have it coming back each time. But there was a caveat to that we do a review on a sustainable funding model going forward and bring that back, and the staff and the Arts Centre bring and present back to Council what is a model that is sustainable over the long term, and that could get reviewed. So it has, you're correct, Councillor McDonald, it has moved and it's shifted, and what we've tried to do is blend those various different perspectives into one relatively straightforward proposal, albeit one that has a rate impact in the first year, and put that up to be tested and for some guidance to be given. So that's really how we've come to be at that position. If we've misinterpreted it, then we'd certainly go back and reflect that back into the model and bring it back at a later point. So happy to take that.
Yeah, Sarah?
Yeah, Phil, if I
Sorry, Tim.
can, yeah. Oh no, so look, completely get that, Beat, and thanks for your work on it. Where I thought we'd landed the other day was that we acknowledged there's a need to fund the Arts Centre. There was a need for the review of the Arts Centre, and that we would look at maybe baking something into each year, certainly not nearly $1 million, and then subject to that review, we would look at some of the capital endowment for the next couple of years, and then restrike it at that point in time. But I thought, based off the reviews that we had undertaken, we were still quite worried about the Arts Centre. So I'm not sure putting $8 million on budget rateable is the right way forward. But again, I'm happy to just do an amendment if I just have a different impression of how we left that meeting.
Okay.
A different understanding, I should say. Yeah.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, I think this is about where I thought we'd got up to. I think one of the things that we did discuss was the fact that because there'd been such overwhelming support for the Arts Centre, knowing that it would have a rates impact, is that we were going to do it from rates rather than the Capital Endowment Fund. There was more certainty of funding over time, which would mean that we wouldn't have another large campaign either next year or in a couple of years' time, but also that the review would happen and then we could change the amounts based on that review if we felt like, if we needed to in the next annual plan or whenever that review was done. This was to provide some certainty that we were supportive based on the overwhelming support from the community. So this is where I thought we were up to.
Mm-hmm. And just thanks, Tim, I'll get you in a minute. Just to bear in mind, everyone out there, that the 100, just correct me if I'm wrong, the 110 is on top of the 820.
Correct. Yes,
okay.
Correct.
And if and it will be soon, as quick as possible, I hope, a review, if a review is done and it's seen that they can cut their costs down or charge for car parking or we can lower that number going forward. That's not set in concrete forever, is it?
Well, I think that's certainly my understanding, Your Worship, is that actually we bring back a staff and the Arts Centre work together, and we bring back something that we believe is a sustainable, workable model, and that we can present to you to be tested and challenged, but that we are comfortable represents a sustainable model. Now, what that looks like, I'm not sure, but we would well and truly expect it to be certainly before the next LTP and potentially within, whether it's ready for the next 12 months in terms of the annual plan, given that that budget can actually start in the next 6 to 7 months, is possibly a bit debatable, but not long after, I would have thought.
It'll be interesting to see, because they've trimmed it up from 1.8 down to 0.8, for argument's sake. They may have already taken some steps to change the model of what they do, but I don't know that until we get their review, and it will be interesting to see what they have done to do that. Tim, then Yanni.
Yeah, I actually agree with Councillor Templeman and the Mayor. This is where I thought we'd got to. The key for me is the review, because unlike the Arts Centre's campaign, the council has always been supportive of the Arts Centre, not that you would have known it from their campaign, but this is actually to ensure that people realise that we are. But the key is the review, and it's not just their review, it's our staff putting into that as well, because we need to know that figure, and hopefully it will come down. But again, it's the longevity and the survival of the Arts Centre that we're looking at for the next 10 to 50 years. So I'm supportive of this.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll just make the point that we're setting the LTP budget. You know, we're not signing a cheque at this point. You know, so we're setting the budget, and as you said, the review would take into account a number of considerations, including the use of the Community Endowment Fund or other options, depending on what's found. Yeah, And at any annual plan process, as Bede has outlined, the decision can be reviewed as well as to what's required. Yep.
Brilliant, thank you. We have Yanni, then Sam, is that you again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do Yanni and then you, mate.
I was just trying to see where the advice is on the Ducks proposal that we've passed a resolution to get the advice. I'm still struggling to agree to this or give feedback on this until we get the advice back on what we're doing with the Ducks.
So we gave some advice in an earlier presentation that the Ducks is in a very early stage at the moment. So there's not a concept. Well, there's a sort of concept design, but there's not a preliminary design. There's not a design that costings could be done off. What they have advised is that they are open to a grant or a loan if we're unable to purchase it or because it's outside their act. So they're open to a grant or a loan. If it was a loan, it would mean that they would then build it and then be able to repay the loan from the lease income they get. If it was a grant, it would mean that actually they could build it and then they could put their revenue from the lease straight back into the operations. So that was...
Right, so where does that fit in with the 820 that we're considering?
It doesn't fit in, it's
completely separate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. As you know, Yanni, I was really keen on the council buying the ducts and doing something similar to what we did at the old municipal chambers, get the thing fixed and at least get it done. They have said they can't sell it to us because of the Act, but it was always being thrown in our face. If we didn't fund them, we would end up with it back anyway. So I was trying to circumvent the system and cut out the middleman, so to speak, but it's turned out they cannot sell it to us. We can't.
But I don't want to, I guess my feedback is I don't want to agree to any funding for the Arts Centre unless we've got a really clear way forward for the Ducks.
Good
and
call.
that should be,
Now,
that should be part of the
Could I
package.
add something to that conversation, please? Over here.
Oh, there you are.
Phil. As Mary pointed out, they're not in a position that we can cost anything at this point. That will become part of the review that we do with them for a future decision at annual plan, long-term plan. We're just not at that point, and neither are they.
Yeah, but I think that was the mistake we made last time we agreed to fund them. Some of us wanted that funding tagged to restoring the Ducks, and we didn't support that at the time. And that was when we put in the $5 million or whatever it was over the period of time. So, I think we should have something. I'm just wondering, is there kind of aside from the budget, is there some sort of MOU or agreement we're going to sign with the Arts Centre? Maybe it's a funding agreement or some sort of mechanism.
That'll come up in the review.
And also beforehand, as Russell said, this is putting money in the budget. It's not signing a funding agreement with them.
Yeah, so
actually this is money in the budget, so we can go into negotiations and a funding agreement with them, and we could bring some of that information back then. As Andrew said, it's just too soon to be able to cost out anything to do with the Ducks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But so there's another process once we agree to the budget to work out what the security is of the funding and what it goes towards.
But you also got to run part, and what will come out of all this, say, for argument's sake, it's $10 million to do the Ducks up. Someone, might be us, I don't know, gives them a loan of $10 million. That's $1 million a year at 10% return. It's $500,000 at 5% return. That means if someone goes into the Ducks, it's going to be $500,000, which is $10,000 a week, which I think anyone would struggle to pay as a person in there. So in my head, it doesn't stack up. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Lots of heritage funding available from central government that we should be trying to
That's
access.
correct. If they can get the funding from someone else and it's given to them, if we give them a loan and they've got to pay us back, it doesn't work in my head.
So just to be clear though, so there's no misunderstanding later, a few years, Councillor Johansson, is this funding is proposed for operational funding. It's not proposed for the Ducks. That's a different project outside that.
Correct. Okay, no, enough on that. Right, we've got Sam and then Mark and then Andre and Sarah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm still not understanding it. Why has the staff advice changed around the split from rating to capital endowment fund?
We've tried to present this as alternative staff advice. It doesn't necessarily replace the previous. as has been said, our interpretation of the advice presented 2 days ago was to come back and show councillors what the impact of funding the Arts Centre from general rates would be. We're not, staff are not suggesting that this replaces the other advice. We're suggesting that you now have two sets of advice that you can
So this is
create amendments from
yeah.
or debate on the
Because
day.
every single one of the workshops we've put out our initial advice, you have accepted that or not accepted that and given direction of further advice you want. So this is a response to the direction we've got. So quite a few, our initial advice to everything was quite different to now. You've given us guidance and asked for further advice, and we've come back with that.
So is this an option, or is this baked into the draft plan now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm not clear on that.
No, through you, Mr. Mayor. This number is in the numbers that I've presented earlier. So that's at the moment it's in.
Right. So it's not an option. It's the now recommended staff position.
That's correct. But if that was to change,
can we be really clear that these are not the recommended staff positions? These are, we have given our advice. You have asked us for further direction and modification to that. And so now we have responded to that, the direction the council gave us, and put up what the scenario would look like based on the direction we believe we've got from you.
So this can be amended either way or the other later.
Okay, I must have a different recollection. That's all good.
Okay, Marcus.
Yeah, I tend to be with Sam on this. I thought it was more rates neutral in the first year or two, and we were doing that review, and I certainly don't disagree with the quantum going forward, subject to review, of course, but I seem to recall, along with Sam, that it was more rates neutral in the first year or two, so seeing it going as 0.12 add-on to the rate is a surprise to me.
I think as far as the rates go, I think Jake brought up the other day that it makes more sense to charge them the rates, don't give rates for admission, but give them a bit more dough. Otherwise, they can't or won't pass it on to the right people, because it's a bit of a
I agree with that
mess.
small portion, but there was a larger quantum of capital endowment fund in the first year.
So you saw. So if in the first year, if you funded that through capital endowment fund, that rate increase would then move to the second year. So you would. So that it's only rate neutral because you have that rate increase in that first year, and that's sustained throughout.
But it gets you through the hump of next year.
Okie dokie, we're getting on to it now. We've got Andre, please.
I'm all good, thank you.
Thank you. Sarah? No. We're really into it. Melanie?
I was just going to say what we already said. I would be shocked if one person in the public came back if we funded this from rates based on the number of submissions. I would be completely shocked. But they're welcome to do so. And if they're watching,
shall I
let
give
us
them
know.
your personal number? I'll get them to all contact you directly.
Okay. Righto. Thank you very much. Carry on, please.
So it's still up to you what you put up in your mayor's reps. You can still decide.
And then they can
want to then.
The question has been put to CNZ in relation to them about how much in the budget per annum from its baseline funding is for delivery of events, and we've asked for salaries, overhead and operational costs. Andrew's had a little bit of contact with them. Do you want to talk to that, Andrew? Briefly.
Yeah, I can. Well, it's on the board in front of me. That was the question that was asked. Councillors asked. Sorry, thanks, John. Councillors asked us to go away and ask the question: how much of their base funding do they allocate to events? They sort of gave a partial response, I guess you could say, where they didn't articulate the amount of money they allocate to other types of events, be it business events. they've come back with some further information this morning, but it wasn't clear. It was just repeating some of the presentation material. The staff advice we have from the finance team that is historically it's been about 2.1 of their base funding has been, well, that's the funding that was sent across historically to deliver events.
In 2018, when the transfer was made.
2018 was when the money was transferred. So there's not much more I can say other than this is their response, sorry.
Okay. All right, Tyler, please.
We are going to get a briefing from CNZ next week. Is that what Ali was saying?
It's not.
Not a long-term plan. This is the last workshop of the long-term plan.
Okay, so just to follow in what Andrew said, exactly right. In 2018, their baseline funding was I think I've got it written down, $10.1 million. Of that, 2.1 was events funding, plus another half a million that was from the grants and events Andrew thing. Their baseline funding's now 15. So we would assume that 2.1 has been inflation adjusted as well as the 10, but we this is the information Christchurch NZ have provided to us.
Okay. All right, should we move on to the next slide, please? Unless you've got something else.
No, just one moment, because we do, in the pack we had put forward, because we'd also been asked what was the prior 2 years, and we had a slide that showed in a comparative for the prior 2 years. But for some reason it's not there. If we could just be given a moment to get that slide and inject it, if you could just, apologies for that. But it was that financial one that showed it. So if we could just be given
the whole
the whole funding package sort of thing. My apologies.
That's an important one.
Yes,
do you want us to have 5 minutes and then?
It would be. Thank you very much.
Good, guys. Have 5 minutes. Thanks, guys. sorry, everyone, that took 6 minutes, not 5. Far away.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And so our apologies that slide had gone down, and we're not sure into the public excluded part. So there was no, that's public information, so we've got no problem, and I'll ask Russell to speak to it in a moment. But look, just to go back to the summary of guidance, a correction, because we've had it pointed out with the Aldhurst Memorial Hall. It says there, no additional funding, option to gift land. It should say option to lease land and gift the building. So I think just in terms of being quite particular, the option is on gifting the building and leasing the land. So we want to clarify that, and we'll make sure that is correct when the final report comes through. That was what was consulted on, so my apologies for that error.
So have you got a question on that, Aaron?
On that, won't that affect how they get funding and stuff for it? Because if they, as a community group, own the land, which a community group's just part of the city, let's be honest, if they own the land and the building, then they have an asset that they can essentially take to a bank if they want to. So don't we hamstring them by leasing the land only?
Our advice, our legal advice is that you would need to consult before we gifted them the land.
To a community group in our own community.
As
long as the structure of the community group meant that if it ever folded, it goes back to the council, then aren't we covered?
Sorry, through the chair, the Aldhurst Hall is a significant asset. So as a result, we would need to consult or have special consultative procedure in relation to the actual gifting of the land also. Because we only went out and consulted on it being leased and the building being gifted.
Right. Interesting term, calling it a significant asset because the council were happy to bulldoze it. But
you're right.
The land, I think it's the land.
The land.
Well, it's only
the building is
it's a bit over 1,000 square metres.
That's what you're suggesting, Beat. So that's where we change it just for clarity.
For clarity, just for that. So, look, if there are particular questions arising on that, we can respond to those. But we thought it was important to correct the record and make sure everybody was that was done. So, thank you for that. So, look, this.
No. Now you open a can of worms. You see, we got Andre, Mark, and Tyler.
Oh, right.
No, you're good, Mark.
Yeah, I'll just remind everyone of the origins of that land. It was actually gifted by the community to the council way back. So,
Tyler.
Just for clarity's purpose, the community group itself do realise and they do know that it's the gifting of the building and not the land, correct? They're acknowledging that?
I'm not sure.
Sorry, John.
To absolutely confirm that, I can make a quick call and get back to this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Thanks.
Good. You've remembered.
Yeah, well, is this the same sort of model as the old Halswell Library?
I'd have to, through you, Your Worship, I'd have to go and check. I don't know that model.
Go and talk to John when he comes back.
Cool. Just and if it's the same sort of situation, like they're not physically allowed to apply for funding for things related to the building. So yeah, just check if it's the same sort of model. So.
Okay, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm happy with whichever way we go ahead, but I think it'll be good if we could keep an open mind around whether we either sell the land back to the community because it was gifted by the community to the council, so just undoing that. But as long as the thing is, if the thing folds, it comes back to council. Beyond that,
we're going to do some further work around the assessment of the land, whether it's significant or not. So we'll come back with some further
that'd
advice.
be good. So we'll have some info. Thank you heaps.
The consultation document clearly states leasing for $1 a year, so.
No, the building's fine. The building we consulted on, and it's certainly been transferred. It's the land that we're going to come back.
Okay.
Oh yes, that's given to us. Whether we gift it to them or just lease it.
Here we are.
Yeah, we'll come back.
We're talking for ages about something that we're giving away. Okay, next carry on.
Yeah, look, thank you. So we had the question about what was the prior 2 years funding to see. So on the events, for the events. So Russell, do you want to go through that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much, Bede. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, so this is the slide, unfortunately, that was missing before. And so what we've done is we've put in the prior 2 years and the following 4 or 5 years. So you can see halfway down in the year 23-24, you'll see the injection of the $1.94 million the events ecosystem funding, and then that wasn't there for the next 3 years. So this is as per the draft that had gone out, and then it was kicking in from year 4. So it's so that's an updated position on a bit of the history and going forward.
But it is a very, very good slide, which gives a lot of clarity to everyone on how much money the council dishes out, for want of a better word, towards events funding for the city. It's, as I say, some pots are low, some pots are high, but they're here we are, got average 15 million a year. So carry on. That's good. That's good slide.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so just
Sam's going to bring back. Yep.
So just brilliant. So so following through, the question was put to the team as relation to how the baseline funding was split for events, and fortunately haven't come back with the detail yet, but we'll keep pushing in to try and get that through. Okay. There's also so just looking at the funding that's been put into the numbers already. 1.2 for year 1, 2.1 for year 2, and 2.7 for year 3. And as you saw in the previous slide, year 4 kicks in as we need. Yeah, and so just on this, just on the split down the bottom there. So what we're looking to put in is the funding for the next 3 years, and staff advice will come back on the reallocation of the funds to the different, I guess, how that's going to be done. That'll be a position coming back to council. So yeah, not necessarily as it is there.
There you go.
I'm happy to take any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Tim?
Has this been raised with the different groups? So you've got 3 organisations there, so VOs, the CNZ and the council itself. So
Just to clarify, that was an early suggestion. That's what we're going to come back with. So if the funding goes into the plan, how that fund is allocated will then be determined.
Tim, I put that idea up because I didn't want one group cannibalising it off the other.
I'm just double checking that will go back. There will be some feedback from those organisations.
So that's what Russell was saying. Yep.
Pauline?
In or out of your 12.14 number that you gave us before?
Yeah, thank you. It's in the numbers I said earlier.
It's in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Maybe if you just remind us at the end of every slide if it's in or.
Okay, righto. Well, we're pretty much at the end.
Ask the great question again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
The last item.
Well, so that. Oh, sorry. Were there further questions?
No, you're right. No, he was just waving his pen.
Brief thought was, so we apologise. That is the end of the public session, and we would like to go into PX because we now have some financially sensitive information to share.
Thank you very much. Very clear. Thank you.
Wait.